We are now happy to be joined by Sarah Griffin. Sarah, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you're currently writing for
You're currently writing for
pitcherslist.com. For those who don't know, what is pitcherslist.com? Can you give us a breakdown of that?
So Pitcherlist is basically it's a big baseball journalism website. It started off just as like pitching gifts, and the two guys that run it now, it's Nick Polak and Alex Bass. They kind of just would break down like pitch by pitch, like for each different MLB player. And now it's just kind of grown to this big community, like big following. Like Alex Bass actually has been on a few ESPN like Sunday Night Baseball stuff. And so I write for the Across the Seams website, like section of the website. And it's more like less like nitty gritty stats and more just like bigger storyline type things. So I've done things about, most recently I did one about the Woo Sox. I've done one on like John Means' story, just stuff like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was in a clubhouse room with Alex Fast one time, and I followed like a lot of his work with CSW and stuff like that. So he's awesome.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. He's really cool.
He's so cool.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure that's such a cool thing. So for you, where did your love for baseball originally come? The Red Sox specifically, tell me a little bit about your story when it comes to, where your baseball love comes from.
Yeah, so obviously growing up in New England, my team was always the Red Sox, like everyone else. And my parents are really big baseball fans. When I was born, they still had their season tickets. They had their season tickets actually up until 2004, which is unfortunate for them. But so I just kind of grew up always watching the games. And then once we moved, because we used to live close to the Boston, then once we moved, we lived like 15 minutes from the Paw Sox, which is so much cheaper to go to than Red Sox games. So we would go to those games all in the summer. And I think over time, I was just kind of grew my own personal love for the game. And I kind of refound it in college when I was like, all right, I kind of want to make a career out of this.
Gotcha. Yeah. So as you said, in college, you went to Bridgewater State. So was it there that that's where you really figured out you wanted to get into journalism, sports? Was that kind of where you found all that?
Yeah, for sure. I originally went there actually for history and secondary education because I wanted to be a high school history teacher. And then by like senior year, because I had already started my own like sports blog, just kind of like writing whenever, like not really looking for anyone to see it, just sharing it now and then to see if anyone had a reaction to it. But as like time went on, and it was actually during that 2018 season, I started to see it like pick up a little bit. I'm like, oh, well, like maybe this is something I can make a career out of. It definitely is where my passion was the whole time. So I was like, I guess we'll give it a try. And I dropped education, picked up the communications major, actually.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that's so cool. So, you with the Red Sox, I was really excited to have you on today because I'm a big Red Sox fan myself. We're based out of New Jersey, so my dad's from up there though, so I'm a huge Red Sox fan. I even broke out, you probably can't see it, but my Verdugo autographed hat today, so I had
that's a Verdugo autograph.
Yeah, I met him at Citi Field earlier this year. When they came to play the Mets, I got to meet him after the game, so that was really cool. He's my favorite right now, so that was pretty cool. Yeah. So speaking of like podcasts and stuff, you do a couple podcasts yourself. Pod on Lansdowne is one of them, and then the First Pitch podcast. Can you tell me a little bit about those and what you do with them?
Yeah, so Pod on Lansdowne, now it's a lot. I'm not sure if you see him on Twitter, Fitzy. I think his username is literally Fitzy Mopania. And so it was a couple years ago. It was him and our friend Tim were like, let's just start our own podcast, whatever, just like see what happens. And especially last year during COVID, we were making a lot of episodes because we were kind of bored. And it's funny because there's no baseball to be watched during a majority of the time we were doing that. But we would just like pick the most random, like obscure, like old Red Sox topics from like random teams and just kind of like delve into that for an hour. And it was fun. And then most recently I went on that First Pitch podcast and it was fun. Honestly, I feel like I've been on a few now. I just kind of like going on and really talking to anyone about baseball.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like I run so many different like perspectives and like different ways to approach it. So it's always been fun.
Totally. Yeah. So I want to talk to you a little bit about like Twitter and social media presence. So you're around like 17,000 followers on Twitter. So where did that following and the growth on Twitter, where did that come from?
It was really weird. It was, again, that 2018 Red Sox season. So I had been like just live tweeting Red Sox games probably since like high school. And I had like 200, like 500 followers, like teetering between that, like all throughout college. And no one was really paying attention to them. And then like 2018, all of a sudden, again, I was still just doing the same thing I was always doing, just like live tweeting every game because I was watching every game anyways. And I don't know if it's because they had such a good team that it started like to pick up pace a little bit. And like all of a sudden, I didn't even know there was like Red Sox Twitter existed, to be honest, until
Oh,
then.
yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, like there's people that are just like me that are tweeting like this too. Like I'm not this crazy person. It's as time went on, I like started to get this following of people where I'm like, oh wow, I'm not the crazy person. There's plenty of crazy baseball fans out there. I just didn't know they existed.
Exactly. Yeah. I do keep up with like Red Sox Twitter a little bit, but I'm in a few fan groups on Facebook,
Uh-huh.
and the like toxicity level is just like
Oh my
nuts.
God.
People every
Facebook
like,
is
oh, it's
awful.
like every loss, it's like the world is falling apart, and there's like everything's wrong. Nobody can hit, nobody can pitch. Fire Alex Cora. It's like, oh, it's just insane. It's like,
It's always the end of the world. That's the same thing with like Bruin. I'm on a lot of Bruins Facebook groups.
mhm,
It's so terrible. I can't even go on. I don't even know I'm still in them. I think
right.
just for kind of
That's how I
entertainment
feel.
at this point.
It's like fair weather fans, and there's this joke going on in one of the groups that like some of the people, we think they're secretly Yankee fans because of how like the way like the negativity that they share about the Red Sox. We think they're like Yankee fans who tried to infiltrate the group and just shit on the Red Sox.
Right? There's like people like that Red Sox Twitter too. I'm like, I've never seen someone like this group of people that say they're fans of the team that hate the team so much
I
and want
know.
to see them do bad. Like that sounds miserable. Why are you watching?
Yeah, no, I like Red Sox Twitter a lot. I like Red Sox stats. I think he's awesome.
Oh,
Uh
he's the best.
yeah, he's like crazy. I remember he had this like pinned tweet for years that since like 2018, he was like, if they re-sign this guy, and this guy, then the Red Sox will win the 2018 World Series. And then they
I
did
remember
it.
that.
That was the craziest. And then obviously the Section 10 guys, everybody loves them. They're huge on
Oh
Twitter.
yeah, they're
So
hilarious.
yeah, I love them too. So, but yeah, no, Twitter's awesome. And like the baseball presence on social media is crazy. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about your experience being a woman in sports. So tell me a little bit about your experience in the field and, some challenges maybe you've had to overcome in the sports industry.
Yeah, so starting out like everyone else, I was like, okay, that feeling like when you're like, oh God, like I'm behind the game. Like people have been doing this stuff since like high school, like getting all these internships, like trying all this stuff. I'm like, all right, it's like my senior year of college. So I was just kind of like taking on any internship or like writing opportunity I could get at that point. And so the first like big thing I took on was a basketball league internship, which I'm not a basketball fan.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting, but also didn't help. It wasn't a supportive group of people. And I'm like, I don't know if it's just because they like knew that I wasn't into basketball or whatever, but I'm just like, I have this like feeling that these people don't really want to see me succeed, like that type of thing. So I'm kind of glad I had that experience like firsthand, like to start off, because I was like, all right, I know what I should expect, like who's going to support me, like that type of stuff. So from then on, I feel like a lot of it has been just networking with other women in sports, which I found a lot of them through like Twitter and stuff. You get connected with them, and it's people that are like have like these huge jobs, or people that were just like me, like just starting out,
Right.
and you kind of have to help each other out a lot. But that's how like a lot of the opportunities I've gotten. I feel like being a woman in sports, like you have to be able to like have like other women's sports to like lean on and like help you navigate your way.
I like that. I like that a lot. So, like, if you had to give advice to a younger girl who's trying to get involved in the sports industry, what would you say?
I would say don't let anyone discourage you. Definitely if there's someone that you like look up to or someone that you think is on the same like wavelength as you, like reach out to them, like connect with them, because I'm telling you, they'll either have advice for you or they'll make you feel better about your situation. And really just trust your instincts about like if something like is going to be a good situation or not, because there is some people, like I feel like for men and women in sports, especially like younger people, you like never know like what like some people's true intentions are sometimes. So just definitely like stick to your gut and like listen to what you think is right.
Absolutely. I like that. So, out of your time covering Major League Baseball, covering the Red Sox, and all of that, what's been your favorite part so far? What about it do you love the most? We're asking the tough questions here today.
I know, that's a good question. Honestly, I think my favorite part has been all the people I've like met through it. Because like I said, like even before like 2018, I'm like, oh, I kind of feel like all my friends, like they're not really interested in this type of stuff. I feel like I've made so many friends now that are like close to me. Like it's not like it's just some people I'm like, oh, they're like an acquaintance or like a work friend, something like that. Like I've met people that are like so similar to me and like share kind of the same like values. And I'm like, and we both are all crazy about sports. So
yeah,
it works out.
That's awesome. So I kind of wanted to also just like while I had the chance, so get into some Red Sox talk with you because I couldn't help myself. So so like how have you felt so far about the season? Who have you been impressed by, not so impressed by? I know I'm really happy with how the season started so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I like wrote an article for Pitcherlist. I think it's for a fantasy breakdown type thing.
I saw that one.
Yeah, back in January, and I got some heat for it because originally I actually edited out because people were like, nope, that's not what happened. I was like, oh, like if the cards all align, like they could contend for a wild card spot. And I was like, that's not going to happen. Like you're being a homer, like whatever. I was like, all right, I'm going to take this out because I can't really.
Wait, people were mad that you thought that the Red Sox were going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
That's ridiculous.
So, but now I'm like, granted, this was before like that Andrew Benintendi trade. It was before they traded for Ottavino. And I think I published it right as they got Kike and Garrett Richards. And I think also a funny part of that one is I have like Garrett Whitlock in there as like kind of a footnote.
Okay, like, nobody thought Garrett Whitlock was going to be good. Like nobody thought he was going to be good.
I go back and look at that article and I think I have like 2 sentences about him. And I'm just like, yeah, maybe it'll work out. I don't know. No, there really wasn't much on him.
Yeah, no, he was because he didn't pitch like at all with the Yankees, really. And like I really liked your analysis on a lot of the guys. I read through it. I loved the Phillips Valdez analysis because I love him. So I was like, I liked that.
Oh my god, he's my favorite.
Yeah, that was great analysis. I really liked that because that was such like a low key pickup that nobody really paid attention to. So I thought that was like you were spot on.
Like I don't know if it's because. Yeah, like I'm like, I don't know if it's because no one was paying attention really in 2020. Like only a few people are like actually like watching every single game. And I'm like, wow, no one's talking about this guy. Like he was a sneaky good pickup. And now finally this year he's getting some recognition. He's been good this year too.
Yeah, no, he has a really good sinker. And I think he's like, especially for a team that like obviously the Red Sox, the thing that people criticize about them the most is their pitching and their bullpen. I think he's a huge piece for us.
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the parts I actually like about this year. I'm like, our bullpen's because the bullpen's been pretty bad the last few years. Even in 2018, like I was kind of like, and it just got worse and worse. I'm pretty comfortable with it at this point.
Right.
Like there's certain off days where some guys have like the day off and stuff, and it's a little ugly because you don't really know who's gonna go out there.
Right.
But like Matt Barnes has probably been my favorite this year so far.
Yeah.
Like
the knuckle curve is crazy.
And I'm like, yeah, because I'm like, I've always been a fan of him, but it's almost like he's a new pitcher.
Yeah, I was listening. So that when they over the weekend when they were playing the Phillies, I was listening to the Fox broadcast and they were kind of saying that this was like every year he would come in and he would be like, oh, I just want to do whatever's going to help the team. But he came in this year and was like, I'm the closer. I'm going to be the closer this year. So I think that like that completely changed what he was doing. So yeah, so like obviously the Red Sox have a top lineup in the league. Nobody doubted that, they can hit. But like obviously people doubt the pitching. Like what is your feeling been? Do you think this pitching rotation, especially, you know, once Sale comes back, what do you think that like down the stretch things are going to look like?
Right now, I feel like people again always have that like crazy like initial reaction. Like I have to like put in perspective. I'm like, okay, it's
162
still
games.
yeah. I think especially lately now with Erod, his last 3 or 4 starts have been very eh.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like he started off pretty strong for someone that was just out the whole year because of COVID. And I'm like, it's not like again last year where we don't have the pitching staff to like support like one bad start.
Right.
Like you can rely on these like Garrett Richards, Nick Pivetta. I really like Nick Pivetta
Yeah.
actually. Martin Perez has been really good this year. You know, Evaldi's had his struggles, but he's still pretty solid. Like kind of what I was expecting from him.
Yeah.
And then again, you have the bullpen now to back it up. It's not just like these random guys that they like file in from single A at this point, just throw out, hope for the best.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. You might have done the same thing, but I smiled a little recently when I saw that they DFA'd Austin Bryce.
Oh, I was waiting for that moment. Like I hate saying that because I hate being like, oh, like he's so bad. But the last game I went to, he actually came in and I like said to my sister, I was like, this is like the only person I didn't want to see pitch right now.
Yeah, I was on the train for a while where it was like DFA him and DFA Josh Taylor. Taylor's been pretty good this month, but I like he gives me some like sometimes he comes in and walks like the leadoff guy, and I'm like, this is about to get really ugly really fast.
He kind of reminds me of Colton Brewer.
Yeah,
I kind of
exactly.
have the same feelings with those two.
Exactly. But yeah, no, and like especially, you know, Erod not pitching as well right now. You know, Garrett Richards obviously had a really like tough start to this season, but then kind of took everybody's criticism and just said like, shove it, I'm gonna come out here and prove everyone wrong. He actually, I was at the game I was at was against the Mets where he went like 6 in like a third or something like that, and only let up.
You were at that game?
Yeah, that was the game. I was at the game where Bobby hit his first home run, and like that was a great game.
Yeah, it's a great game to see.
Yeah. So but yeah, so I wanted to ask a little bit something that like a lot of Red Sox people are like very invested in. So you mentioned the Benintendi trade earlier. So when it comes to Franchi Cordero, it's like obviously no secret that he's been really iffy so far, and his like strikeout numbers are appalling, and people are like demanding for him to get demoted to AAA. And then you have Jarren Duran, who's going 5 for 5 in Worcester. What are your thoughts on Cordero? I know it's still like so early, so young, but what are your thoughts on that whole debacle?
It's tough because honestly, he's the one person that when he comes up to the plate, sometimes I kind of just want to look away because it's like ugly strikeouts, like ugly at bats. But within the last few weeks, I feel like he's starting to turn the corner. You know, everyone that's like, oh, DFA and whatever, I'm like, just like the logistics of it, like contract wise stuff, I'm like, you can't just send him down there and like be gone with it and like pull up someone. I'm like, if anything, maybe he could have like benefited from like maybe a week or so down there. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, it seems like he's starting to figure things out. You know, he finally hit his first home run.
That was a shot.
Yeah, I'm like, that's what we were expecting from him. And I'm like, I think he's better off at this point, kind of just developing still up here, because that's what we need from him, you know?
Right.
Like we can't really afford to be like, all right, send him down. No, never want to see him again.
Right. It's just, yeah, it's been, for me, it's been so hard because like I see Jarren Duran hitting like near 400 in Worcester, and I'm like, how can I not want this guy to come and play right now?
I know, I want Duran up too, but I'm like, I'm gonna give Cordero maybe another month or so.
Yeah.
Just to see if he can figure it out up there. Because like I said, it looks like he's starting to slowly but surely. And again, it's kind of frustrating because I'm like, he came in to replace Benny, who we all like was kind of unbearable to watch at the plate too for a while there at the end.
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of the same deal.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, honestly, the fact Cordero's so young and he's only making $800,000 right now. So I think there's value alone in letting him get major league at bats. So, so that's kind of like where I've been with that. So, you know, just quickly as we start to wrap up down the stretch, what do you think this Red Sox team, give me like a final record prediction. Like, do you think they're going to surpass 90 wins?
I think they're going to surpass 90 wins. The only thing is the AL East is by far the most competitive, best
It's
division. So I'm
crazy.
like, they could come close to like, I don't know if they'll hit 100 wins, honestly, especially when I like look at like their June schedule and stuff and just their schedules as they go down the stretch. But I'm saying 96 wins.
I like that. That's a good
Yeah.
take.
I'm like, I don't know how that's good. I'm like, they could get 96 wins and still be vying for a wild card spot, considering the Rays are already right on top of us. The Yankees are like one game back. Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a dogfight.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm going to the first game at Yankee Stadium on June 4th, the Red Sox Yankee game.
Oh,
So,
you are?
so I'm like so nervous for it, honestly. I'm like ready. I'm like, we need to win that one. That's gonna be such a
Well,
big
that's the
series.
thing. I'm like, it's so fun that the AL East is like finally like super competitive because even the Blue Jays aren't that far back. But I'm like,
Yeah,
now like every game matters and it's only May 24th.
exactly. That's where it gets crazy because like no team can afford to slump right now.
Exactly. It's so stressful. I feel like it's like a constant September baseball, just like trying to stay at the top.
Exactly. So kind of the last thing I wanted to ask you, do you maybe have a cool like Fenway Park experience, like a cool like baseball story that you could share, like something maybe you like interacted with a player, like something cool that like you experienced at the park?
Actually, I do have one. It was in 2019. It was this September, very end of September, because you know they were just so bad. In 2019, tickets were so cheap. So me and my sister just went on a whim, whatever. I think tickets were like $12, and we were like in the right field box, like pretty close to the field. And it ended up being that I think it was 15, 14 inning game that set like the MLB record for most pitchers used in a game. It was against the Giants. And so by the end of the night, me and my sister are off in the right field, you know, and they have Brock Holt come out in right field. They took out Mookie. And it just got to the point where Brock was just like chatting with us
Oh
as
my
we were just
God.
because he was so over it. It was like almost 2 a.m.
That's awesome.
There was barely anyone left at the park because it started to rain.
You weren't leaving. There was no way you were leaving the
I was
game
like, we've
early.
already stayed this long, like might as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they lost, but it's
Oh,
fine.
Sarah, it's been so great getting to talk to you on the podcast today. I really appreciate your time and appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Awesome. Thanks.